Welcome back to Mr. Charles Stories, where true love rarely comes easy, and life always has something deeper to teach us. What if one night changed everything? What if the man who disappeared came back not for you, but for the child you raised alone? Tonight's story isn't about revenge. It's about timing, regret, and whether love can survive silence. If you've ever had one decision follow you for years, stay with us. This story is yours too. And hey, if you believe that some stories are worth waiting for, go ahead and like this video, subscribe, and turn on the bell. Let's get into it. The storm that night had no rhythm, just rage. Sheets of rain slammed against the hotel's glass doors, streaking the marble floors inside. Thunder rolled through downtown Seattle like it was chasing someone. But inside the boutique hotel, Aubrey Dane sat calmly behind the front desk, tapping inventory logs into her screen. She didn't flinch when the power flickered overhead. She'd been through worse. The lobby was empty. Most guests were tucked away in their rooms. Only the soft instrumental playlist and the storm outside filled the silence. Until the revolving door creaked. She looked up, and everything stilled. He stepped through the glass entrance like he didn't belong to this world, or didn't care to. Tall, shoulders soaked through his charcoal grey suit. Rain glistened on his collar, dripping from his jawline. But it wasn't the suit that gave him away. It was his eyes. Clear, still, but heavy, like he'd seen too much, and refused to talk about any of it. Aubrey blinked once, then twice, then straightened. "Welcome to the Holden," she said quietly, reaching for a fresh towel. "Storm's unforgiving tonight." He took the towel with a nod, not a word. No arrogance, no charm, just exhaustion. And somehow that made her more alert. The usual guests, tech execs, hedge funders, once famous actors, always had something to prove. Always loud, always entitled. But this man was quiet, and quiet was dangerous. He glanced at the check-in screen behind her. "Reservation for Andon," he said. She typed it in. "See Andon. One night. Executive suite. No special requests." He gave a single nod. "That's right." She paused. "ID." He pulled a black card from his wallet and slid it across. She noted the last name. Andon. No first name listed. No assistant. No luggage porter. Just him. She handed him the key card, still watching him. "Elevators to your left," she said. "Suite 1903. Power's holding for now." He nodded again, but didn't move. For one breath, two, he stood there, eyes unreadable. Then, without another word, he turned and walked toward the elevator. The glass doors closed behind him with a hush. Aubrey exhaled only when he disappeared. She wasn't one to fixate on strangers, but this one carried weight. Like he hadn't just come in from the storm, but waste the storm. 45 minutes passed. The rain didn't let up. Aubrey returned to her routine, sorting files, preparing morning invoices, checking restock lists. But her thoughts kept drifting, not to his face, or even his suit, but to the stillness he carried. A man with that much presence didn't walk alone by accident. Andon, no one she knew. Yet something about him pressed against a part of her she kept locked away. Softness, curiosity, danger. At 2:12 a.m., the elevator dinged again. She looked up. Empty. But then she saw him. Through the glass lobby doors, he stood outside. No umbrella, no coat. Still wet, but not shaking. Just watching, waiting. Aubrey hesitated. Then, against all logic, she grabbed her coat. She stepped out into the rain. He looked at her like he was relieved, or surprised she came. "I'm not from here," he said. "I figured." The rain softened around them. They walked down the block, passing shuttered restaurants and wet pavement. Neither spoke, and then they did. Small things at first. He asked what books she read. She asked what brought him to town. "Business," he said, then added, "But not tonight." They ended up at a 24-hour diner. No crowd, just a bored waitress and stale coffee. She noticed the way he drank it straight, no sugar, no cream, like a man used to bitterness. He asked her name again. This time, she gave it. Aubrey. He said it softly. Nice name. She asked his. Callan. Not Andon then. But he didn't explain. She didn't ask. Somehow, it was better that way. By the time they left the diner, the rain had paused. And when he looked at her under the streetlight, her breath caught. She could have turned around, gone back to the hotel, locked her feelings away, but instead, she walked with him to the suite. It wasn't loud or passionate or rushed. It was quiet. Their hands were tentative. His breath against her neck was unhurried. Her heart was a drumbeat, but her body relaxed under his touch. No promises, no names on paper, just presence. She woke up alone. The other side of the bed cold. No note, no card, just silence. Back at the front desk later that morning, she checked the screen. Suite 1903 checked out. No follow-up reservation, no forwarding contact, nothing. She stared at the entry for a while, and then she closed the tab. Back in her small apartment that evening, Aubrey sat on her bed, staring at the raindrops on her window. Don't be foolish, she whispered to herself. It was one night. She pulled the blanket over her knees and turned off the lamp. But sleep didn't come easy, and when it did, she dreamed of eyes that didn't ask for anything, but haunted everything. Aubrey moved on. At least, she told herself she did. That night stayed hidden in the quiet corners of her memory. A memory she refused to feed but never quite buried. She never told her friends, never brought it up again at work. Callan Andon was nothing more than a ghost she once kissed beneath a rain-soaked street lamp. 3 weeks passed, then 5. No sign, no message, no hint he ever existed. And Aubrey, disciplined, responsible Aubrey, went back to her routines, her shifts, her quiet apartment, her budget meals, her solitude, until one morning her hands shook at the front desk. She was supposed to be checking inventory again, but her stomach twisted. Sharp, sudden, deep. She brushed it off. Too much diner coffee, not enough sleep. She powered through. But the next morning, the same thing happened. Then again the morning after that. The nausea was subtle at first, then it came in waves. Relentless, unforgiving. A week later, she sat on the edge of a clinic bed. Cold paper crinkled beneath her. The nurse gave her a small, knowing smile. Positive, she said gently. Aubrey blinked. There's no way. There is, the nurse said. And you're about 8 weeks along. Aubrey's breath vanished. She gripped the paper in her hands, eyes wide, throat dry. Is there someone we should call? She shook her head quickly. No. She walked home in silence. Seattle rain clung to her coat. Her phone buzzed with a text from her supervisor. She didn't respond. Inside her apartment, she sat on the floor. No music, no distractions, just the sound of her heart in her ears. She tried to remember every second of that night again. His touch, his voice, his silence. And suddenly, the ghost wasn't gone. He was growing inside her. She didn't cry. She didn't panic. She made a plan. By month 3, she gave notice at the hotel. By month 4, she moved back to Oregon. Quiet town, quiet streets, a place where no one asked questions. She found a job as a front desk assistant at a dental clinic. Less chaos, more routine. She rented a small duplex with peeling paint and a backyard full of weeds. But the kitchen got sunlight in the morning, and that was enough. At night, she'd lie in bed, hand resting on her stomach, whispering things into the dark. I'm here. You're safe. You're wanted. She didn't say his name, because she didn't know it. Ellis was born in early spring. The nurses said he was perfect. 6 pounds, sharp gaze, soft hair. She held him for the first time, and everything inside her settled, and then trembled, because he had her lips, but not her eyes. His eyes belonged to someone else. The first year was a blur. Bottles, burp cloths, exhaustion. She stayed in motion, paid bills, held him through long fevers, cried only in the shower. But through it all, She loved him with everything she had. Ellis became her anchor. He didn't speak until he was 2, but when he did, his first word was hi, paired with a little wave. He was curious, obsessed with wheels, wouldn't go anywhere without his blue blanket and wooden train. And he had this stare, focused, quiet, like he was watching the world more than living in it, like his father. Sometimes, Aubrey wondered, who was Callan? Was he married now? Had he ever thought about her? Would he believe her if she showed up at his office with Ellis? No, she never let herself go there. She told herself, he's not your story anymore. But at night, when Ellis was asleep and the house was still, she sometimes found herself whispering, does he know he exists? At daycare, Ellis thrived. He loved blocks and stories and would ask the other kids endless questions. But sometimes, the teachers would mention how quiet he was, how mature he seemed for his age, how he didn't like loud crowds. Aubrey smiled. He's just observant. Inside, she knew the truth. He was his son. Ellis never asked about his father. Not yet. But he would. One day. And she still didn't know what she'd say. On Ellis's 4th birthday, she made him pancakes shaped like animals. He smiled and hugged her neck. You're the best, he said, cheeks full of syrup. And in that moment she thought, this is enough. Until later that week. She picked him up from daycare as usual. Same time, same walk. But when she reached the gate, Ellis was standing still. His backpack was still on. He wasn't moving. She followed his gaze. A sleek black car was parked across the street. Windows tinted. Engine off. Her breath stalled. Then the back door opened, and a man stepped out. She didn't scream. She didn't run. She froze. Because, in the late afternoon sunlight, she saw him again. Tall, controlled, no rain this time, no exhaustion, just presence. He looked across the street and their eyes met. And Aubrey knew her mistake was back, and he wasn't here for closure. He was here for his son. The street felt longer than usual. Ellis stood beside her, tugging gently on her hand, unaware of the thunderstorm rolling beneath her skin. Who's that man, Mommy? He asked, voice full of curiosity. Aubrey blinked. She didn't answer. Callan crossed the street with the kind of calm that didn't match the chaos unraveling in her chest. He wore a navy coat over a simple grey shirt. No entourage, no briefcase, just him and that same unreadable stare. He stopped 3 steps away. Hello, Aubrey. His voice hadn't changed. Still smooth, still steady. But it no longer belonged to a mystery in a hotel room. It belonged to him, the father of her son, the ghost she couldn't forget. Her throat went dry. She crouched slowly beside Ellis. Let's go inside, sweetheart. But She cut him off gently with a touch to his shoulder. Her voice stayed even. Now, Ellis nodded and skipped toward the gate. When he was out of earshot, she turned back. What are you doing here? She asked, her voice sharper than she expected. I needed to see you, Callan said. And him. She folded her arms, every inch of her defensive. You don't get to do this. Show up out of nowhere. Watch from across the street like some movie scene. I didn't want to scare you. Then why did you come? Callan's gaze flicked toward the gate where Ellis disappeared. He took a deep breath. I saw a picture, he said, from a tech conference right up. You were working the front desk at the Holden. I kept the name. I searched. And then what? She asked bitterly. You got bored one day and thought, hey, I wonder if that woman I slept with had my child. His eyes didn't flinch. I never forgot you, Aubrey. Don't. It's the truth. You left, she snapped. No note, no number, no name. Just vanished. He nodded. I thought it would be easier. For who? For you, he said, then corrected himself. For both of us. Aubrey's heart slammed against her ribs. You don't even know him. Callan didn't respond. Instead, he reached into his coat and pulled out a slim card. He handed it to her. Callan Anden CEO, Anden Industries. So the name was real. The suit, the silence, the power. He hadn't been running from anything. He had been the man in control the entire time. "You're a billionaire," she whispered. He said nothing. "You think money fixes this?" "No, I don't think anything can fix what I missed." They stood there in silence. Then she shook her head. "You need to leave. Aubrey, don't come here again. I'm not here to disrupt your life." Too late. Her voice cracked. She didn't mean for it to. She turned away and walked toward the gate. But before she stepped inside, he called out, "I didn't come to take him." She paused. "I came to know him." That night, after Ellis fell asleep, she sat at her kitchen table with Callan across from her. She didn't want to let him in, but he didn't ask for much. He waited until she said it. "You have 4 minutes," she said coldly. "Start talking." Callan looked around the room. Modest, clean, worn. His gaze softened when it landed on the small drawing tacked to the fridge. A wobbly stick figure family labeled "Me, Mummy," and a third figure left blank. He looked back at her. "I couldn't stop thinking about you," he began. She scoffed. "Let me finish." Aubrey crossed her arms but stayed quiet. "I didn't know your full name, only your badge initials, but I tried to find you, a few times. Then I stopped. I convinced myself it was better that way." She stared. "Why?" He took a breath. "Because I didn't trust myself to be enough." She blinked. "I didn't grow up with warmth," he said. "I was raised to perform, to execute, to win. That night with you, it was the first time I didn't feel like I had to be anyone." Her arms slowly loosened. Callan added, "When I saw your picture in that article, I looked you up, found your name. Then I found this town. And then Ellis." Aubrey's stomach turned. "You followed us." "I did. I had to see for myself." She pushed back from the table. "You don't get to show up and act like this is yours." "I know. Do you?" He nodded slowly. "I know I don't deserve to just walk in. I know I missed years I can never get back, but I'm here now, and I want to be part of his life." Aubrey stared at the table, then at the soft light from the hallway. Ellis was sleeping in the room next door. Callan continued, "If you say no, I'll respect that. But please don't make the decision without hearing what I'm willing to give, to both of you." She looked up. "Both of us?" "I didn't come just for him." A silence stretched between them. And in that space, something shifted. Not forgiveness, not acceptance, but the start of something uncertain. The next morning came with the usual rush, toast crumbs on the floor, a half-packed lunchbox, and Ellis asking why his socks didn't match. Aubrey didn't mention the late-night conversation. She couldn't, because if she did, it would make it real, and she didn't know what she wanted yet. But Ellis had his own plans. As soon as they stepped out the front door, he pointed. "That's the man from yesterday." Callan stood beside his car across the street. No suit, no coat, just a navy hoodie and sneakers. He waved. Ellis waved back. Aubrey didn't. "Mummy, is he your friend?" She paused. "We used to know each other." "He looks nice," Ellis said. Nice wasn't the word Aubrey would use. Dangerous was closer. Because Callan didn't play by the rules. He waited years, then returned like no time had passed. But he wasn't going away. She could feel it. And Ellis, sweet, curious, open-hearted, was already looking at him like he mattered. After drop-off, Callan approached again. "I want to be consistent," he said. "Start with what's allowed. You set the boundaries." She crossed her arms. "You really think I can trust you with him?" Callan didn't flinch. "No, but I think I can earn it." She studied him. Not just his face, but his posture. He looked grounded, not cocky, not sorry, just sure. They started small. Callan picked Ellis up once a week. He stayed outside the school, greeted him with a small smile and a new library book each time. Ellis began to expect him. The second week, he invited Callan to his classroom's block tower challenge. Parents were allowed. Aubrey was supposed to go, but Ellis said it gently. "Mommy, Can he come too? So she let them both go. When they returned, Ellis was glowing. Mummy, Daddy. He stopped, looked confused. I mean, Callan helped me win. Aubrey's stomach twisted. Callan caught her reaction. He didn't say anything, just helped Ellis out of his jacket, then left quietly. Later that night, Ellis fell asleep with the book Callan gave him tucked under his arm. Aubrey stood in the doorway and stared at her son. Then she whispered into the dark, "What am I doing?" The next few weeks passed slowly. Callan didn't push. He showed up. Steady, respectful. One day he brought groceries, only things Ellis liked. Another day, he helped replace the broken lock on the backyard gate. He never stayed too long, never tried to overstep. But Ellis, he warmed fast. He asked questions, wanted to know if Callan liked the same cartoons, if he ever built towers as a kid, if he knew how to make chocolate chip pancakes. Callan learned how fast. By week 6, Aubrey allowed him inside for dinner. By week 8, he was helping Ellis with alphabet puzzles on the living room floor. One night, after Ellis fell asleep, she caught Callan still kneeling by the bed. "Why are you still here?" she asked. Callan stood slowly. "Because walking away was the worst mistake I ever made." She didn't speak. He added, "I'm not here for a second chance at you. I'm here to be the kind of man Ellis won't be ashamed of one day. If you're still watching right now, here's a question for you. Could you forgive someone who came back late, but came back better? Let us know in the comments, and while you're at it, give this story a like if it's pulling your heartstrings. We've still got a long way to go. 2 months later, Aubrey sat with her lawyer. It wasn't about custody or court battles. It was about safety. What do you want protected? The lawyer asked. Ellis's future, Aubrey said. His education, health, stability. Does Callan know? He offered. The lawyer arched a brow. Offered what? Everything. That night, Callan handed her a file. Inside were documents, setting up a private trust in Ellis's name, education fund, medical fund, real estate clause, travel rights, but no demand for custody, no visitation clause, just security, all managed under her name. She looked up from the papers. Why? Callan's voice was low. Because I want to give, not take. Aubrey didn't cry often, but her eyes welled up that night, not because she felt weak, but because someone finally chose her son the way she always had, with action, not promises. Still, she had one condition. No press, she said. No exposure, no mansion visits. Callan nodded. Done, and no cameras near him. Ever. He gave her his word. And no surprise gifts, she added. He doesn't need to be dazzled. Callan smiled faintly. I'm not trying to impress him. I'm trying to earn him. Aubrey exhaled slowly. Then, for the first time since he came back, she let him stay for dinner without watching the clock. The air felt different that morning. Not because it was raining. It wasn't. The sun had come out for the first time in days, making the dew on the grass outside shimmer. Aubrey stood at the kitchen counter, pouring milk into Ellis's cereal bowl, watching, as he spun in lazy circles around the living room, still in his pajamas. He was humming. That was new. He only hummed when he was excited. "Mommy," he asked, halfway through his third lap, "do you think Callan likes peanut butter toast?" She looked up. "I think he probably does." "Good," Ellis said, "because I want him to eat breakfast with us one day." Aubrey's hand froze on the milk carton. Ellis looked at her with wide, innocent eyes. "What?" "I think he should come here in the morning," Ellis said, "and we can all eat and then go to school together." Aubrey placed the carton back in the fridge without answering, because the truth was, she didn't know how to say no to that kind of request. Later that week, Ellis brought home a family drawing from preschool. He handed it to her like it was treasure. "This is me," he said, pointing to a stick figure in a blue shirt. "This is you, and that's Callan." The third figure was slightly taller. It had brown hair and a cape. Aubrey smiled, even as her stomach tightened. "Why a cape?" she asked gently. Because he's like a superhero, Ellis said. She almost corrected him. Almost told him Callan was human, flawed, years late. But she didn't. Because her son, her bright-eyed, train-loving little boy, had found something he needed. And for once, it wasn't something she could give. That night, as Callan packed up his things after another dinner with them, Aubrey stopped him at the door. He asked if you'd ever have breakfast with us. Callan raised a brow. Is that an invitation? It's a conversation. I'm listening. She folded her arms, unsure how to phrase it. He's starting to want more. Callan nodded. That's good, isn't it? I don't know, she admitted. I've always known how to handle this life. Quiet. Private. No sudden movements. But now you're here and I'm not trying to replace anything, but you are becoming something, she said. He didn't answer right away. Then he said, I want him to know he's not a secret. Her voice dropped. He's not. He's protected. There's a difference. I agree, he said. That's why I'm following your lead. But when he asks questions, I don't want to lie to him. Aubrey looked away. He's already asking. Callan's eyes softened. Then maybe it's time we both have answers ready. On Saturday morning, Callan knocked on the door holding a brown bag. Ellis answered, wearing his superhero cape. Callan smiled. Nice cape. Ellis grinned. Yours is better. I drew it. Callan held up the bag. I brought something to trade. Hope you like cinnamon rolls. Ellis gasped. Aubrey shook her head from the kitchen. You're going to spoil him. Callan raised a hand. They're from the bakery down the street. No gold flakes, no hidden diamonds. Aubrey cracked a smile. Barely. They sat at the table, 3 seats instead of 2. Ellis beamed between them, telling a story about how he'd almost beat his classmate in a puzzle race. Callan listened like every word mattered, and for once, Aubrey stopped watching the clock. She just watched them. After breakfast, Ellis pulled out his block set. Callan, wanna build towers? Only if you teach me, he said. I will. Mommy doesn't like building. She knocks them over when she cleans. Aubrey laughed under her breath. Callan sat cross-legged on the rug while Ellis dumped blocks all over the floor. Aubrey leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, and watched as her son built a crooked little skyscraper, Callan adding one piece at a time like he'd been doing it for years. Then it happened. Ellis turned to Callan, mid-build, and asked, Are you my real dad? The room fell silent. Callan froze. Aubrey's heart stopped. Ellis didn't even blink. He just kept holding a red block in one hand, waiting for an answer. Callan looked at Aubrey. She didn't say a word. So Callan turned back to Ellis. Yes, he said gently. I am. Ellis looked thoughtful. How come you didn't come before? Callan paused. Because I didn't know you were here. Mommy knew, Ellis said plainly. I know, Callan said. But I didn't. And that's my fault. Ellis tilted his head. Are you going to leave again? No, Callan said. Not unless your mom tells me I have to. Ellis nodded. Okay. And just like that, he turned back to the blocks and kept building. Aubrey stepped outside onto the porch. She needed air. She gripped the wooden railing until her knuckles turned white. She hadn't expected that moment to come so soon. Hadn't expected her son to ask the question she'd been dreading since the day he was born. But maybe that was the moment she'd been avoiding. Not for Ellis, but for herself. A few minutes later, Callan stepped out onto the porch too. He stood beside her, quietly, then said, He's brave. So are you, she replied. No, he said softly. I'm just late. Callan didn't stay long after that moment on the porch. He didn't have to. Aubrey needed space, not because she was angry, but because her world was shifting in ways she hadn't prepared for. She had spent 4 years managing every detail of her son's life, every cold, every scraped knee, every bedtime story. She had also managed the silence, Ellis's questions about where's Dad. That hadn't come, until now. And Callan had handled it, gently, honestly, without sugarcoating or running. That scared her more than if he'd disappeared again. Sunday morning, Aubrey stood at the kitchen sink, watching Ellis push his toy truck across the backyard porch. His cape trailed behind him like a flag. Callan had said he wouldn't leave unless she told him to, and the truth was, she didn't want him to. But wanting him and trusting him were two different things. She poured herself coffee and sat at the table. Then she picked up her phone. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard before finally texting. He asked again this morning. Wants you to come to his school's art day next Friday. Are you free? The reply came less than a minute later. I'll be there. Thank you. Friday arrived faster than expected. Art day wasn't fancy, just a folding table lined with glue sticks, crayons, and bright construction paper. Ellis had chosen to paint a rocket ship. Aubrey was in charge of helping with labels, but Ellis only had eyes for one thing, Callan. He was early, wore jeans and a Henley shirt. No staff, no pretense. He carried a sketch pad and Ellis's favorite snack. One of the other moms whispered to Aubrey, "Is that Ellis's dad?" Aubrey nodded slowly. The woman smiled. "He's gorgeous." And surprisingly, normal. Aubrey let out a soft breath. Yeah, he's been surprising a lot lately. Ellis dragged Callan around like they'd been doing this for years. This is the reading corner. This is where Miss Tina does silly voices. And this is my painting. See? You're in it. Callan crouched down to look. A stick figure in a red cape beside Ellis. He didn't say anything at first. Then he whispered, "Thank you for drawing me." Ellis smiled wide. "You're welcome. I wanted you in my rocket." Aubrey blinked fast, pretending to clean her fingers of glue. Later, as they walked to the car, Callan stayed behind while Aubrey buckled Ellis in. She closed the door gently. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded, slowly. "I haven't seen him that open with anyone but me," she said. "Not even my sister." Callan looked at her carefully. "Does that scare you?" She considered the question, then answered honestly, "Yes. I'll always follow your lead," he said. "But what if I don't know the path?" she asked, voice lower now. "I've been in survival mode for years. I don't know how to let someone in without waiting for the other shoe to drop." Callan nodded. "Then don't let me in all at once. Just leave the door cracked." Aubrey didn't respond. But she didn't close it either. That evening, Ellis fell asleep on the couch with a paintbrush still stuck behind his ear. Aubrey covered him with a blanket and sat beside him. She scrolled through her phone, unsure of what she was looking for, until she stopped on a message thread with Callan. It was mostly logistics. Short replies, Ellis updates, schedule tweaks. But her thumb hovered over the keyboard again. And this time she typed, "You were good with him today." A few seconds later, "He makes it easy." A beat passed. Then another message. "You do too, Aubrey. Even when you don't mean to." She stared at the screen, then locked the phone. But she smiled, just a little. It started with a light bulb. The one in the hallway outside Ellis's room had been flickering for weeks. Aubrey meant to fix it, but between work, Ellis's school projects, and the late-night dishes, it always fell to the bottom of the list. Callan noticed it the moment he walked down the hall one evening after dinner. "You got a step stool?" he asked casually. Aubrey blinked. "Why?" He nodded toward the ceiling. "I'll swap it out." She hesitated. "You don't have to." "I know," he said. "But I want to." She watched him quietly as he unscrewed the old bulb and replaced it with a new one. One he pulled from a pack he'd bought without telling her. When he stepped back down and the light turned on with no flicker, Aubrey said nothing. But something inside her softened. From there, it built slowly. One evening, he fixed the loose cabinet door without being asked. Another day, he picked up groceries while she was stuck at work and surprised her by stocking Ellis's favorite cereal and the oat milk she always forgot to buy. On a Sunday afternoon, he assembled a small bookshelf Ellis had begged for. Humming while he worked, Ellis handing him screws like a miniature assistant. He never stayed the night, never crossed lines, but his presence became a rhythm. Not loud, not disruptive, just there. One night, Aubrey stepped outside after cleaning up dinner. The sun had dipped low, painting the backyard in a warm orange hue. She found Callan on the back step, sipping water, watching Ellis chase fireflies barefoot. "Does he always run that fast?" Callan asked with a grin. "He thinks he's faster than light," she replied. Callan nodded. "He might be." They sat in silence for a moment. Then she spoke. "You know, this was easier when you weren't real." He glanced over. "What do you mean?" "You were a memory," she said. "A bad decision I could keep in a box." Callan was quiet. "But now," she continued, "you're here. You bring books. You fix lights. You hold a pencil like you've been teaching him to draw your whole life." She looked at him. "You're not a mistake anymore." "And I don't know what to do with that." Callan set the cup down slowly. "I didn't expect to become anything," he said. "I came for him. But I stayed for both of you." Her heart thudded. "Don't say things you don't mean." "I mean everything," he said. The air stretched between them, charged. She looked away first. "Ellis has school tomorrow," she said softly. Callan nodded. "I'll head out." But as he passed her on the step, he paused. "Do you want me to stop coming?" She didn't answer right away. Then, barely above a whisper, "No." That night, Ellis asked if Callan was coming over again tomorrow. Aubrey said, "We'll see." Ellis grinned. "I think he likes it here." Aubrey smiled. "Maybe he does." Over the next few weeks, the lines blurred. Callan helped with bedtime stories, sometimes stayed for movie night. One Friday, Ellis convinced him to help build a fort in the living room, using every chair and blanket they owned. Aubrey sat on the couch that night, wrapped in a throw, watching the two of them fall. Asleep inside the blanket fortress, Callan's arm draped loosely over Ellis's shoulder. Her chest ached in a way she couldn't name. It was too good, too easy, and she didn't know how long it would last. One Thursday afternoon, Callan showed up early. She opened the door, surprised. "Everything okay?" He looked tired, like he hadn't slept well. "Can we talk?" he asked. She stepped aside. Ellis was at his friend's house for the afternoon. Callan sat at the table. She stayed standing. "I have to go out of town," he said. Her shoulders tensed. "For how long?" "2 days. Maybe 3. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I didn't tell you last time," he said. "And I don't want to disappear again, not even for a few days, without saying something." Aubrey nodded, slowly. "Is this a test?" she asked. Callan looked confused. "What?" "To see if I care." He stood. "No, I already know you do." Her arms crossed. "So why are you nervous?" "Because," he said, stepping closer, "I don't want you to get used to me being gone again." She looked up at him. Too close, too quiet, too honest. Then she stepped back. "Text me when you land." Callan's smile was small, but full. "I will." That night, as she sat beside Ellis's bed while he slept, she caught herself wondering what Callan was doing. And not because she needed him, but because she missed him. The first night without Callan felt off. Ellis didn't seem to notice. He ate his dinner in a blur, played with his toy rocket until bedtime, and fell asleep mid-sentence during his favorite story. But Aubrey felt it. The silence was heavier. There was no second plate at the table. No deep voice reading out loud from whatever book Ellis had picked. No quiet footfalls in the hallway fixing the crooked rug or replacing the batteries in the remote. She told herself she should be relieved. She had her space back, but it didn't feel like freedom. It felt like absence. Callan texted late that night. "Landed safely. Back by Saturday night if all goes well. Tell Ellis I miss him." She read it twice. Didn't reply. Not out of anger. Out of fear. Because if she opened the door more, she wouldn't be able to close it again. The next morning, Ellis asked before breakfast, "Where's Callan?" "He's away for work," Aubrey said. "Did he say bye?" "He didn't want to wake you." Ellis stared at his cereal. Aubrey watched as he stirred it slowly, not eating. That's when she realized how fast her son had grown used to presence. How, somehow, in less than a few months, Callan had become a pillar in their everyday life. Not a guest. Something close to essential. On Saturday afternoon, it rained again. Seattle's kind of rain, light but constant, like the sky couldn't decide if it was weeping or whispering. Aubrey stood at the window, arms wrapped around her chest. She wasn't watching for anything, but she was waiting. At 6:12 p.m., headlights turned into the driveway. Her breath caught. Ellis heard the car door close and bolted to the window. "Callan!" he shouted. Aubrey opened the front door before he could even knock. There he was, drenched again. Déjà vu. But this time, he was smiling. "Hey," he said. Ellis crashed into his legs before Aubrey could say a word. Callan crouched, hugging him tightly. "I missed you, buddy." "You were gone forever," Ellis said. 3 days, Callan laughed. "But yeah, it felt long." Aubrey watched the moment unfold. Heart tight. This was no longer temporary. She could feel it in the way Ellis clung to him. That evening, they had dinner like usual. Callan brought pizza and a small keychain from the airport, shaped like a rocket. Ellis loved it so much, he insisted on sleeping with it. Aubrey leaned against the counter after dishes were done. "You didn't have to bring anything." Callan shrugged. "Habit." She nodded. "Then, you said you'd be back by Saturday." He glanced at her. "You didn't think I would?" "I've learned not to expect much from men who leave." Callan stepped closer. "But I'm not leaving again." She met his eyes. "You say that like it's easy." "I say that like it's mine to prove." They stood in silence for a moment. Then she spoke, quieter. "He missed you." "More than I expected." "I missed him too." She paused. "And me?" Callan didn't flinch. "Especially you." Aubrey looked away, but not before he saw it, the way her lips pressed together, the way her arms folded tighter across her chest. She wasn't just guarding herself anymore. She was guarding something they were both building. The next day, she found him in the backyard with Ellis, helping him plant flowers in a shallow plastic pot. Dirt on his jeans, mud on his hands. Ellis laughing like he hadn't in weeks. She stepped out holding lemonade, and for a moment, she just watched them. Callan looked up, smiled, and patted the grass beside him. She hesitated, then sat down. Their arms brushed. Neither pulled away. Later that night, as she closed the door after he left, she found a sticky note on the inside of the fridge. His handwriting, "No rush. But whenever you're ready, I'd love to build more than towers with you." Her hand hovered over the note for a long time. She didn't take it down. Aubrey used to believe love only came in loud, dramatic waves. Back when she was younger, back when she still watched romantic comedies and believed in grand gestures and lightning strike kisses. But that was before pregnancy, before Ellis, before quiet resilience became her everyday oxygen. What Callan brought into her world wasn't dramatic. It was slow, steady, a weightless kind of gravity that made everything else feel softer. One evening, after Ellis fell asleep early from a long day at school, Aubrey found herself with a rare, quiet moment. The TV was off, the kitchen was clean, and the house was still. She made tea, sat on the couch, and stared at the framed photo on the shelf. Ellis at 3 years. Old in a pirate hat, holding a paintbrush with more paint on his shirt than on the canvas. Then her phone buzzed. "Callan, made it home. Thanks for dinner again. You make routine feel like peace." She read it twice, then replied, "You make it harder to pretend like it's not happening." 3 dots appeared, paused, then disappeared. No follow-up text. She stared at the screen, uncertain. Did she say too much? Was that too honest? Then the reply came in. "Then don't pretend." The next afternoon, he brought Ellis home from school while she was on a late shift at the clinic. She expected to return to a half-eaten sandwich and markers on the wall. What she came home to was music playing low, the dishwasher humming, and both of them asleep on the couch. Callan with his head tilted back, Ellis using his chest as a pillow, the boy's hand curled into the man's hoodie like a trust he never had to earn. Aubrey didn't say anything. She sat on the edge of the couch and watched them sleep. And she realized, for the first time in years, the house didn't feel like it was missing something. It didn't feel like survival. It felt like life. Later that week, Ellis was invited to a birthday party. Bounce house, balloons, the works. It was the first time Aubrey had to answer the question, who's coming? Mom? Dad? Both. She paused when she filled out the RSVP form. She wrote, Aubrey Dane plus Callan Anden. Not just Mum, not guardian, not family friend. She didn't know what it meant yet, but she didn't erase it. The party was loud, dozens of kids, parents mingling with paper cups of soda and plastic plates of pizza. Callan didn't hover. He let Ellis roam, bounce, eat too much sugar, but he stayed within reach, always within reach. Later, Aubrey leaned against the fence, sipping lemonade. Callan joined her, handing her a napkin. Ellis told the other kids we live together, he said with a smile. She nearly choked. What? I asked him what he meant, Callan said. He said, we don't sleep at the same house, but he's there when I wake up sometimes, and he's there when I go to sleep sometimes, so it's kinda like that. Aubrey laughed under her breath. That's how kids see it, Callan said. Presence, not paperwork. She nodded. He's not wrong. Callan looked at her. And you? I don't know what to call this, she said honestly, but I know it's not nothing. That night, after Ellis went to bed, Callan lingered longer than usual. Aubrey was folding laundry on the couch. Callan sat nearby, watching her quietly. You always do this alone? He asked. For years. He reached for a towel and folded it the wrong way. She corrected him, then laughed. You're terrible at this. Let me get better, he said. At this, at being here, Aubrey stopped folding. She met his eyes. I want to, she whispered. Callan reached out slowly, brushing a piece of lint from her sleeve. She didn't move. Their hands touched. And for a moment, neither of them said anything. Then, as if on instinct, he leaned forward. His forehead rested against hers. Not a kiss, just stillness, but it said everything. She closed her eyes and let herself feel. What would you do, family, if the person you tried to forget became the one who showed up right this time? If you've been pulled into this story, let us know with a comment. Drop A if you believe in slow, honest love. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories that heal. It started with a cough. At first, Aubrey thought it was nothing, just Ellis being Ellis running through backyard, sprinklers barefoot, yelling at the top of his lungs while chasing butterflies. Then came the fever. By midnight, it had climbed past 102. He tossed in bed, cheeks flushed, mumbling things that didn't make sense. Aubrey sat by his side, pressing a cool cloth to his forehead. Panic, threatening to break through the calm she'd practiced for years. He hadn't been this sick since he was a baby. She reached for her phone without thinking. Callan answered on the second ring. His voice, low and alert. What's wrong? He's burning up, she said. I gave him meds. Cool compress. But something's not right. I'm on my way. She didn't ask how long it would take. She just whispered, doors unlocked. 17 minutes later, Callan walked into the house still pulling his hoodie over his head. He didn't knock, didn't pause. He went straight to Ellis's room, where the boy lay wrapped in sweat-soaked blankets, breathing fast. Aubrey looked up from the bed. Callan sat beside her, touched Ellis's forehead, then looked her in the eye. I've got him. Aubrey swallowed hard. I don't know if it's RSV again, she said. Hospital? He asked. I don't know. He's never this quiet. Callan stood. Get your shoes. They didn't speak much on the drive. Ellis whimpered in the back seat, head resting against Callan's arm. Aubrey held his tiny hand the whole way. At the ER, Callan handled the registration, knew Ellis's birth date, insurance info, even remembered his pediatrician's last name from a refrigerator magnet. Aubrey sat holding Ellis on her lap in triage, swaying gently, trying not to cry. Callan sat beside them, his hand resting on Ellis's back. No panic, No ego. Just presence. The doctor said it was a bad virus, not RSV. No need for overnight stay. Just fluids, rest, and fever control. Aubrey exhaled for the first time in hours. On the way home, Ellis dozed in the back seat. Callan kept one hand resting behind him, fingers just lightly brushing the boy's leg. "You didn't flinch," Aubrey said softly. "I couldn't," he said. No hesitation. No second guessing. Callan glanced over. "He's mine." "Of course I came." Back at home, Callan helped settle Ellis into bed. Then Aubrey sat on the edge of the couch, drained. He handed her water, then sat beside her. "I know it's still early," he said, "and I know you've done this all without me, but tonight—" He paused. "Tonight made me realize something." She looked at him. "I don't want to be the kind of father who just visits," he said. "I want to be the man who stays." Her breath caught. "You've been staying," she whispered. He shook his head. "I mean fully. No lines. No halfway. Not just when it's convenient or safe." Aubrey lowered her eyes. Callan continued. "Quieter now. You've given me space to show up. I'm asking if I can take more." She hesitated. "You're asking to move in?" He shook his head. "I'm asking what us would look like. If you finally stopped expecting me to leave." Aubrey didn't answer right away. The house was too quiet. Ellis's cough echoed faintly from down the hall. "I spent so long being proud of how well I did this alone," she admitted. "Like if I needed anyone, it meant I failed." "You didn't fail," Callan said. "No," she said. "But I'm scared that if I fall now, I'll fall too hard." Callan reached out and gently took her hand. "Then let's build something soft enough to land on." She looked up at him, and for the first time, let her fear speak. "I never wanted Ellis to grow up thinking love leaves." Callan's grip tightened just slightly. "He won't," he said, "because I'm still here, and I'm not going anywhere." The clock ticked past midnight. Neither of them moved, and for the first time since Ellis was born, Aubrey felt something unexpected. Safe. Aubrey always thought if Callan ever stayed, truly stayed, it would feel like her world was being taken over. Instead, it felt lighter. He didn't move in officially. There were no boxes, no declarations. But his toothbrush appeared next to hers one morning. Ellis stopped calling it Callan's car and started calling it our other car. And on Thursday nights, when Aubrey worked late at the clinic, Callan picked Ellis up from school, made him dinner, and folded tiny T-shirts without being asked. It was like he slipped into the cracks of their life without making noise. And somehow, she liked that better than anything loud. They didn't talk much about labels. There was no need to. They were parenting, living, laughing, and for the first time in years, Aubrey didn't feel like she was holding her breath. One Friday morning, she woke up to find Callan in the kitchen wearing Ellis's apron, bright yellow with Super Chef printed across it, and flipping pancakes. Ellis sat on the counter, proudly holding a whisk. "What is happening here?" Aubrey asked, amused. "Saturday prep," Callan said. "I promised him we'd have breakfast for dinner tonight." She raised an eyebrow. "On a Friday?" Callan grinned. "It's our new thing." Ellis voted. "I got outnumbered." She walked up behind him and kissed his shoulder before she could talk herself out of it. "You're ridiculous," she whispered. He turned slightly, eyes soft. "Only for you." Later that evening, they sat outside while Ellis bounced on the trampoline. The backyard was bathed in golden light. Callan sipped from his glass and leaned back in the chair. "You ever think about what it would have been like if we met under different circumstances?" Aubrey nodded slowly. "Sometimes. But then I remember, if anything had gone differently, I wouldn't have Ellis." Callan smiled. "Yeah. He's kind of the best thing that ever happened. To both of us." They looked at each other, and for once, there was no past between them. Just possibility. But peace, Aubrey knew, didn't last forever. Not in the real world. The following week, she received a letter addressed to her work email. An anonymous sender. It included 2 photos, one of her outside with Callan in the backyard, one of Ellis on the school steps, and a third of Callan standing at a press event from 2 years ago, arm in arm with another woman. The message was short. Thought you should know who your baby daddy really is. He's got a past. Aubrey's hands trembled as she held the printout. Not because of the photo, but because someone was watching them. She didn't sleep that night. She watched Ellis breathe, then paced. By sunrise, Callan found her sitting on the front steps, hoodie wrapped tight around her shoulders. He stepped outside quietly. "You okay?" She handed him the envelope without a word. He read it, didn't flinch. "I was engaged," he said finally, "years ago. Before I met you. It was a corporate merger more than a relationship. She called it off before the wedding." Aubrey looked away. "But that's not what scares you," Callan said. "Is it?" She shook her head. "No. It's that someone's watching us. Watching him. I'll handle it," he said firmly. "How? However I need to. If you've ever loved someone but felt terrified of what the world could take from you, comment below. Drop A if you've ever had to protect your peace. And if this story means something to you, like and subscribe. There's more coming." That day, Callan made calls. By the next morning, he had security quietly sweep the neighborhood and added discreet monitoring around the property. He didn't boast about it. He just made sure Aubrey knew she and Ellis were safe. That night, as she lay beside him in bed, she whispered, "Do you regret coming back?" He turned to face her in the dark. "No. I used to think you were a mistake." "I was," he said. "But I've spent every day since trying to be your correction." She reached for his hand beneath the sheets. And for the first time, she held it without fear. Sunday mornings had become sacred, not because of religion, not because of routine, but because those were the mornings Ellis would climb between them with a stuffed dinosaur in one hand and a question in the other. "What do you call it?" he asked one morning, "when the three of us live in the same house, but Mommy and Callan don't kiss in front of me." Aubrey choked on her coffee. Callan raised an eyebrow, suppressing a grin. Ellis waited. Aubrey cleared her throat. "We call that peaceful co-parenting." Callan tilted his head. "I'd call it under construction." Ellis giggled. "Like the Lego tower we broke?" Callan nodded. "Exactly like that." Aubrey looked at Callan over Ellis's head. Their eyes held something longer than humor. Later that afternoon, while Ellis was napping and the laundry spun, in the background, Callan stood in the kitchen rinsing strawberries. Aubrey leaned against the counter, arms folded. "Under construction." Callan nodded without turning. "You said it. Not me." She stepped closer. "What are we building then?" He finally turned to face her. "Something real." "You sure?" "Yes. What if I'm still scared?" "Then I'll build slow," he said. "But I won't stop." That night, he took her on a walk. Not to some lavish rooftop restaurant, just down the quiet street. They passed a row of houses, some with porch swings, others with plastic bikes scattered in the yard. Callan pointed to one near the corner. "That one's for sale." She looked at it. Small, two-story, clean windows, a little backyard. He glanced at her. "We could think about it." Aubrey froze. "A house? Not tomorrow, not next week, but someday soon. Something that's ours, not mine, not yours, just family." She didn't answer, didn't say yes, didn't say no. But she didn't walk away either. The next day at the clinic, her co-worker Sierra pulled her aside. "You glowing or just finally getting 8 hours of sleep?" Aubrey rolled her eyes. "Neither." Sierra leaned closer. "It's him, isn't it? That man who picks up your son, the one who looks like he walked out of a magazine." "Stop. Can I just say, if I were you, I'd be pregnant with twins by now." Aubrey blinked. "Sierra." "I'm just saying, girl. That kind of love doesn't knock twice." Aubrey smiled, but it faded quickly, because Sierra didn't know the fear, the past, the weight of 4 years raising a child in silence. Didn't know how fragile healing could be. That evening, Aubrey lit candles and cooked something other than pasta. Callan walked in and froze. "You cooked?" She smirked. "Don't look so shocked." He stepped inside. "Should I be nervous?" "Yes." They ate on the floor of the living room. Music played low. Ellis colored quietly at the table nearby. And for once, there were no questions, no pressure, just peace. After Ellis fell asleep, Callan reached for her hand. "I've been thinking," he said. Aubrey arched a brow. "Uh-oh, I want to do this right. You've been doing great." "No, I mean officially." Her heart skipped. "What do you mean?" He pulled a small velvet box from his jacket. Opened it. Inside, no ring. Instead, 3 silver bands linked together. One engraved with her name, one with his, one with Ellis's. "This isn't a proposal," he said. "This is a promise. That I'm in this, not halfway, not visiting, not watching from the sidelines. I'm in this with you." Aubrey's throat tightened. He continued, "We don't need papers or a headline. But I want you to know I see you, I see him, and I'm not going anywhere." She didn't cry. She just nodded and slipped the band onto her finger. It started with a photo. Not one Aubrey posted. Not one Callan sent. It came from someone else, a parent at Ellis's school, taken during Family Art Day. A harmless moment, Callan crouched beside Ellis, helping him color a rocket ship. Aubrey was in the background, smiling. The caption: "Didn't know Andon Industries CEO had such an adorable family." Wow! It spread fast. Within 24 hours it was reposted to a gossip blog, then picked up by a business outlet. The next day, Aubrey walked into work and found her inbox flooded. One email subject line read, "Aubrey Dane, hidden heiress." She almost dropped her coffee. Callan showed up at the clinic during her lunch break. He didn't wait for her to call. He knew. He walked in, eyes calm but serious. "I tried to get it pulled," he said. "Too late. It's out." She nodded slowly. "I saw it. I'm sorry." She folded her arms. "I told you I didn't want cameras near him. I didn't bring them. But they found us anyway." His jaw tensed. "Let me fix it. You can't unsee something once the world sees it." He paused. "You're not mad that they saw me with Ellis?" She shook her head. "I'm mad they saw Ellis before he understood what that means." That night, Aubrey sat Ellis down. He was sitting cross-legged on the couch, drawing faces with crayons. She crouched in front of him. "Sweetheart," she said gently, "there's something I need to explain." He looked up. "You know how Callan has a big job?" Ellis nodded. "Well, someone took a picture of you and him at school, and now a lot of people saw it." Ellis blinked. "Like a newspaper?" "Sort of." He tilted his head. "Did I do something wrong?" Aubrey's chest cracked. "No, baby. Not even a little. But why are you sad?" "Because I wanted to be the one to decide when the world met you, not them." Ellis reached out and touched her cheek. "I already met the world, Mommy." Her eyes filled. He smiled. "And I like my world." Outside, Callan stood by the fence, his hands deep in his coat pockets. She joined him quietly. "You don't owe me anything," he said before she spoke. "I should have protected it better. Should have seen it coming. You can't shield him from the world forever." "I can try." Aubrey shook her head. "What we can do is prepare him." Callan looked at her. "And what about you?" She smiled faintly. "I'm still learning." The next day, a journalist called the clinic. Aubrey refused the interview. So did Callan. He issued a statement through his company. "I've always believed privacy is the most sacred wealth a man can hold. Please respect the family that's made me understand why." That quote went viral, and slowly the buzz began to fade. A week later, Aubrey picked Ellis up from school. As they walked to the car, he asked, "Mommy, are we famous now?" She laughed. "Not even close." "Good," he said. "I like being regular." She smiled. "Me too." At home, she found Callan in the backyard again, fixing the latch on the garden gate. "I keep telling you to stop fixing things." "I can't help it. Even when they're not broken, Callan looked up, especially then. Ever loved something enough to want to protect it from the world, only to realize protection means preparing, not hiding? If this hit home for you, leave a comment below. Share your thoughts, drop A, and subscribe for more stories that remind us, love that lasts doesn't hide. It stands. That evening, after Ellis was tucked in, Aubrey walked into the living room, holding 3 mugs of hot cocoa. Callan raised an eyebrow. 3? She handed him one. The 3rd is for the part of us still scared. He looked at her, heart in his throat. Then he said, that part's smaller now. She nodded. Mine too. It was a Tuesday morning when she showed up. Aubrey was closing Ellis's backpack for school when the knock came. 3 sharp taps. No doorbell. She opened the door and found a woman standing there. Tall, elegant, dark trench coat, smooth ponytail. Everything about her said power and something colder underneath. She didn't smile. Is Callan here? Aubrey's spine stiffened. Who's asking? Zara Llewellyn, the woman said. Former fiancé. Callan arrived 15 minutes later. Aubrey hadn't said much. Just texted, there's someone here from your past. Handle it. Now, she stood by the window, arms crossed, watching Ellis play with blocks on the floor while Zara sipped tea like she owned the room. Callan entered and froze mid-step. Zara turned. Took you long enough. Why are you here? He asked. She looked at Aubrey, then back at him. I saw the photo. You, the woman, the kid. Callan stayed silent. Zara tilted her head. You never mentioned you had a son. I didn't know, he said flatly. And you're not part of this. She smiled thinly. You don't get to decide that. Aubrey stepped forward. You need to leave. Zara arched a brow. Excuse me? You're not welcome here. I was part of his life before you were, and now you're not, Aubrey said. End of story. Zara stood, set her mug down with a gentle clink, and walked to the door. Before leaving, she turned. You think men like him don't come with history, that their past doesn't knock eventually? She looked Callan dead in the eyes. Don't forget who taught you how to play this game. Then she was gone. Silence. Callan let out a slow breath. She's no threat, he said. Aubrey kept her voice even. But she thought she could be. She just wanted attention. That chapter is closed. She knew where we lived. Callan looked at her. So did the rest of the world after that photo went viral. She knew about me. He didn't answer. Aubrey stepped closer. You said she ended it before the wedding. She did. But not before you built a life with her, she added. Not before people started seeing her as part of your identity. I was a different man. And I'm trying to believe that, Aubrey whispered. But the truth is, I don't know everything you walked away from, or what might still be chasing you. That night, they didn't sleep in the same room. Aubrey stayed with Ellis. She couldn't risk Ellis hearing them argue. Couldn't let her fear bleed into his peace. Callan didn't call, didn't text, didn't knock on the bedroom door. He knew better. The next morning, Aubrey found a note on the kitchen table. I won't fight you for space, but I'll wait on the porch every night until you open the door again. True to his word, he did. For 3 nights straight, he showed up. Brought takeout on the 2nd night. Books for Ellis on the 3rd. Never asked for conversation, just sat on the steps and waited. On the 4th night, Aubrey opened the door. You can come in. Callan stood, walked inside, paused in the living room. She sat down across from him. I can handle your past, she said, but only if you don't hide it. He nodded. I never cheated, he said, never lied to her. But I wasn't honest with myself either. I was trying to be what my board wanted, what my name required, a packaged man with a packaged future. He looked her in the eye. But I chose you. Not because you're safer, but because you're real. She swallowed. I've spent years building this life alone. I can't afford surprises. Then I'll never let the past knock again before I do, he said. They didn't hug, didn't kiss. But that night, he stayed on the couch, and she didn't ask him to leave. The media quieted. But Callan didn't. He kept showing up, day after day, night after night, not as a headline, not as a spectacle, but as a man trying to earn his place. He stayed consistent, steady, still, and Aubrey began to breathe differently around him, less like she was waiting for an apology, more like she was starting to believe this life might not fall apart again. One Saturday morning, Ellis had a school fundraiser, a small event at the local park. Booths, cotton candy, raffles, parent volunteers everywhere. Aubrey was assigned to the welcome table. Callan took Ellis around to the game stations. She watched him from across the lawn. How he bent down to tie Ellis's shoelaces. How he laughed when Ellis accidentally sprayed him with water at the ring toss booth. How he carried both their jackets, even when no one asked him to. And something inside her shifted. Again. An hour into the event, one of the school board members approached her. Tall man, expensive watch. The kind who introduced himself with a handshake that lingered too long. "You must be Aubrey," he said, smiling. "The one who got our city's most untouchable CEO to show up for duck fishing." She raised a brow. "I didn't get him to do anything," he chuckled. "Either way, it's a good look." Aubrey forced a polite smile and turned her attention back to the raffle tickets. But her hands trembled slightly. She didn't want to be anyone's good look. She just wanted to be his piece. Later that afternoon, as they walked back to the car, Callan noticed her silence. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded. "Just tired." But he knew her better by now. Back at the house, while Ellis took a nap on the couch, Callan sat beside her. "What happened at the park?" She hesitated, then told him. He leaned back, exhaled through his nose. "I figured this might come," he said. "They've been asking me to do more public appearances, lean into the family man story." Aubrey turned to him. "And, are you?" "I said no," he replied. "Told them I'd step down if they pushed again." Her eyes widened. "You what?" "I told my board I'd walk away from the company if they kept trying to use you and Ellis as leverage." Aubrey's voice caught. "That's your life. Your legacy." He shook his head. "Ellis is my legacy. And you're my life." She didn't speak for a moment. Then, softly, "You'd really give it all up?" Callan looked her dead in the eye. "I already have, in my heart. The only reason I'm still CEO is because I want to build a foundation strong enough to walk away from, not be pulled from." That night, he went to tuck Ellis in. Aubrey stood in the doorway, watching as Callan smoothed the blanket and kissed the boy's forehead. Ellis smiled sleepily. "You're my favorite person," Callan whispered. "You're mine too." And Aubrey knew. He wasn't just trying. He was choosing. The next morning, a press statement was released from Andon Industries. Effective immediately, Callan Andon will be stepping back from the day-to-day operations to prioritize personal commitments. His role as father and partner comes first. It shocked the business world. But in Aubrey's quiet home, it just confirmed what she already knew. Neighbors came knocking. Reporters tried calling. Callan didn't flinch. He stayed present. When Ellis asked why people cared, Callan replied, "Because sometimes grown-ups forget what really matters, and we're reminding them." That night, Aubrey curled into Callan's chest and whispered, "I think I'm done waiting for the other shoe to drop." Callan pulled her closer. "It already dropped," he said, "and we're still standing." It was late, a soft, cloudless night, the kind that made the world feel small and safe. Ellis had fallen asleep on the couch, wrapped in his favorite blanket, rocket keychain still clutched in his hand. Callan carried him gently to bed, didn't wake him, just tucked the blanket tighter and pressed a kiss to his forehead before slipping out quietly. When he returned to the living room, Aubrey was on the back porch, barefoot, arms crossed, eyes focused on the night sky. He stood in the doorway. "You good?" he asked softly. She didn't look back. "I used to be scared of this." He stepped closer. "Of what?" "Peace." She finally turned to face him. "I thought if I got too comfortable, life would rip it away." Callan stepped out, closing the door behind him. "You don't have to be afraid of peace anymore. That's easy for you to say." "No," he said gently. "It's not. I built my whole world on fear, of being used, being needed for what I had, not who I was. He sat beside her on the porch swing. But you didn't want what I had. You just needed me to show up. And when I did, you didn't ask for more. You asked for consistency. She smiled faintly. And you gave it. I'm still giving it. The swing creaked beneath them as the breeze moved past. Callan looked up at the stars. I never said it. She tilted her head. Said what? He turned to her. That I love you. Aubrey froze. His voice didn't tremble. It didn't ask. It declared, I love you. He said again. I love the way you fight quietly. I love how you protect Ellis like your heart lives outside your body. I love how you still flinch when someone gets too close. But don't run. She didn't breathe. He stepped off the swing and knelt in front of her, not with a ring, but with both hands open. I didn't come back just to know my son. I came back to choose you. All over again. She hadn't heard those words in years. Not like this. Not real. Not earned. She reached out, placed her hand in his, and whispered, I love you too. It didn't sound dramatic. It didn't come with violins, but it landed like truth. And Callan exhaled as if he'd been holding that breath since the moment he left her bed 4 years ago. They stood together in the backyard, arms around each other, heads resting against the quiet. Later that night, as they curled under the same blanket for the first time, not driven by impulse, but by presence, Aubrey whispered, I used to think love meant losing something. Callan kissed her shoulder. What do you think now? She smiled in the dark. Now I think it means finally getting it back. It came over breakfast, not during some emotional moment or dramatic realization, just pancakes. Ellis sat at the table, feet swinging above the floor, drowning his stack in syrup. Then, between bites, he asked, Are you guys ever going to get married? Aubrey dropped her fork. Callan blinked. Ellis kept chewing, like he hadn't just lobbed a grenade into the room. Aubrey cleared her throat. Where did that come from? My friend Tilly said her mummy and her mummy had a wedding. She got to wear a sparkly jacket and blow bubbles. Callan bit back a grin. Ellis looked between them. So, are you? Aubrey opened her mouth, then closed it. Callan reached over and gently tousled Ellis's hair. Big question, buddy. Ellis nodded. It's important. Then, as casually as he asked, he slid off his chair and went to play with his blocks, leaving the question hanging like smoke in the kitchen. Later that day, Aubrey stood in the backyard, arms folded, watching Callan push Ellis on the swing. The sun was warm. The trees swayed. But her mind wasn't calm. She heard the question on repeat. Are you guys ever going to get married? She never let herself imagine it before. Marriage meant permanence, contracts, expectations, the kind of thing you couldn't walk away from without leaving a trail of dust. She'd lived the last 4 years proving she didn't need permanence. But now she wanted peace. And it felt a lot like the life already growing around her. That night, after Ellis fell asleep, Callan stepped out onto the porch with her. He leaned against the railing, quiet. You're thinking about what he said? She nodded. Callan looked up at the stars. I didn't expect it. But it didn't scare me. She raised an eyebrow. No? He turned to her. I've already committed in every way I know how, Aubrey. I wake up thinking about what Ellis needs, how to lighten your load, and how to build something you both feel safe in. Whether that comes with a ring or not, I'm already yours. She swallowed. I'm not afraid of marrying you, she said. I'm afraid of losing what we have, trying to make it look like what other people think it should be. Callan stepped closer. We don't have to prove anything. We can write the rules. She nodded. I know. He touched her cheek. But if one day you want to wear white and have Ellis blow bubbles in the aisle, I'd be honored to stand there. She smiled. I'm still not wearing heels. He chuckled. Fair. The next morning, Ellis found the two of them making pancakes together. He paused in the doorway, tilted his head, and smiled. You guys already look married. Aubrey winked. Then I guess we're doing something right. It was the flu. Not a scary version, just the kind that lingers, dragging energy through the floor and turning one good day into two bad ones. It hit Aubrey first, then Ellis the next day. By the time Callan stepped through the door with groceries and found the living room littered with tissues, thermometers, and one half-eaten cup of applesauce, he knew the house was down. He didn't blink. He rolled up his sleeves and got to work. For 3 days, he didn't leave. He wiped foreheads, ran warm baths, took calls on mute with Ellis asleep on his chest, made toast, cleaned dishes, refilled tea, refilled again. Aubrey tried to tell him he didn't have to do it all. He looked at her like she'd lost her mind. "You think I'm going to walk out now?" he asked, placing a cold compress on her forehead. She smiled weakly. Would have been a great excuse. He kissed her temple. "You clearly don't know me yet." That night, she woke up sometime after midnight. Her fever had broken, and the air felt still. She sat up slowly. From the doorway, she could see Callan curled on the floor beside Ellis's bed, arms stretched. Over the edge where their son slept, chest rising and falling in rhythm with the boys. She stood in the doorway quietly, watching them both. And in that moment, something inside her shifted permanently. Not because he stayed through the sickness, but because he didn't need praise for it. He just did. The next morning, they were better. Callan, however, looked like he hadn't slept in 3 days. He tried to brush it off with a smile. "You're both alive. That's the win." She brought him coffee on the porch. "You didn't have to prove anything, you know," she said. He shook his head. "I wasn't proving. I was showing." "What's the difference?" He met her gaze. "One tries to be good enough. The other just lives it." Later that evening, Ellis was back to building towers. Callan rested on the couch, finally letting his shoulders relax. Aubrey curled beside him. "I've been thinking," she said softly. He waited. "No one's ever made me feel like I could stop fighting alone." Callan kissed her knuckles. "Then let's keep walking this thing together." She paused. "Do you think we need a wedding?" Callan thought for a second. "No, but I think Ellis would love an excuse to wear a cape and carry the rings." Aubrey laughed, forehead falling against his chest. "Then maybe someday we give him that." That night, Aubrey placed her phone on the nightstand, looked over at Callan, and whispered, "You know I'm not scared anymore." He smiled in the dark. "I know." It started with a craft project. Ellis came home from school with glue in his hair, glitter on his backpack, and a folded sheet of construction paper in his hand. "I made a family book," he announced proudly. He dropped it on the kitchen table and ran off to find his rocket keychain. Aubrey opened it first. The first page had a crayon drawing of Ellis in the center, arms wide. Above it, the words, "My family," in uneven, colorful letters. Page 2, a drawing of Aubrey holding his hand. Page 3, Callan holding the other. Page 4 stopped her heart. The three of them, standing in front of a house. Callan had a small bow tie. She had a flower in her hair. Ellis stood between them with a cape. Underneath it said, "This is what it looks like when love stays." Aubrey sat down without meaning to. The drawing felt like a quiet miracle. Not because it was beautiful, but because it was whole. Callan walked in a few minutes later. She handed him the book without a word. He flipped through it, and when he reached the last page, his hand covered his mouth. A long silence passed. Then he whispered, "I think he's trying to tell us something." That weekend, they drove 2 hours out of the city, not to get away, but to dream. Callan had found a listing. A small craftsman house on the edge of a quiet town, big yard, a tire swing, room for Ellis to run, and Callan to plant whatever he claimed he didn't know how to grow. Aubrey stepped onto the porch and stood still. "I don't want fancy," she said softly. "I know. I just want it to feel like it's ours." Callan took her hand. "Then let's build it. From the ground up." They didn't sign anything that day, but something unspoken passed between them as they stood in the empty living room, Ellis spinning in circles in the middle of the floor. "We can keep the city house for work," Callan offered. Aubrey smiled. "We'll come here to breathe." That night, back in their old living room, Ellis crawled onto the couch between them, holding a plastic ring from a cereal box. He handed it to Callan. "This is for when you marry Mummy." Callan looked at Aubrey. Aubrey looked at Ellis. And in the quietest voice she'd ever heard him use, he said, "Is that what you want, baby?" Ellis nodded. "I want us to have the same name." Aubrey's hand flew to her mouth. And without any planning, or pressure, or headline, Callan said, "Then yes, one day soon I'll ask her, for real, with a real ring, but only if she says yes." He turned to her. Aubrey was already nodding, tears falling, smiling like her heart couldn't hold it all. It wasn't a wedding. There were no invitations, no tuxedos, no white dress. Just a picnic blanket in the backyard, 3 cupcakes from the local bakery, and a plastic rocket ship sticking out of the frosting. Ellis called it a family forever day. He wore a cape. Naturally, Callan wore a button-up that Ellis insisted needed a flower pinned to the front. Aubrey wore soft linen and bare feet. And all 3 of them were smiling like they didn't need a bigger reason to celebrate. The idea had come from Ellis. "If you're not getting married yet," he explained, "we should still have a party, so everyone knows we're a real team." Callan looked at Aubrey. Aubrey looked at Callan. And the answer was easy. They set it up on a Saturday. No speeches, just Ellis standing in the middle of the backyard with a hand-drawn paper flag that read, "This is love that stays." He waved it proudly as Aubrey and Callan sat on either side of him. He made them hold hands. Then he said, "You guys are my favorite story." Callan cleared his throat. "Us too." Ellis continued, "Even though you started without me. I'm glad I got added." Aubrey squeezed his hand. "You were never an addition. You're the center." Ellis nodded like he'd always known that. Then he pulled something from his pocket. 2 simple silver bands. Callan raised an eyebrow. "Did you steal these?" "No," Ellis said seriously. "I traded my allowance. I wanted us to match." He handed them over. Callan took one, slipped it on Aubrey's finger. Then she took the other, slid it on his. No vows, no big declarations, just one shared breath between them. And then Ellis whispered, "Now kiss." Aubrey laughed. "You've been waiting for that, haven't you?" Callan didn't wait. He kissed her. Gentle, long, honest. Ellis clapped. "See?" he said. "Now it's official." They ate cupcakes in the grass, watched the sun slide down the sky. And for the first time in years, Aubrey didn't wonder how long this peace would last. Because it wasn't peace built on pretending. It was peace earned. That night, after Ellis fell asleep with a frosting-smeared grin still on his face, Callan and Aubrey, curled up on the porch swing, a blanket over their legs, silence between them. But the warm kind, the safe kind. Callan looked over at her. "You ever think about that night at the hotel?" She smiled. "I try not to." He laughed. "Fair." Then he added, "It wasn't a mistake." "I know," she said. Then she looked at him, really looked. "You came back for your heir," she whispered. "But you stayed for me." He nodded. "I'd come back 100 times. You've just finished one of the most personal journeys we've ever shared." Aubrey thought that night was a mistake. But 4 years, 1 son, and a quiet kind of love later, she found her forever, right where she least expected it. Now we want to hear from you. Have you ever had a moment where the past knocked on your door, asking for a second chance? Would you trust it, forgive it, or shut it out? Tell us in the comments. Would you let someone like Cullen back in if it meant giving your child a family? Drop A if you believe real love is built, not bought. Leave A if you believe in second chances that don't come with empty promises. And if this story hit your heart in a quiet place, let us know how. While you're here, like this video if it made you feel something. Tap subscribe and turn on notifications. And if you know someone who needs hope, healing, or a reminder that love can come back, share this with them. Every view, every comment, every click helps this channel grow. And we're just getting started. This is Mr. Charles Stories, where love is messy, healing is real, and the stories feel like your own. We'll see you in the next one.